sleep brings you here, my realm. For I am the king of dreams and nightmares.
Hey Den of Geek fans, Aaron Sagers here, and very excited to be joined by the cast of Netflix's The Sandman. Break it down a little bit. Tell us about who these characters are as we are going to be seeing in this series.
I play Morpheus, the king of dreams, who is the being who creates our dreams and our nightmares, our fears and our fantasies.
I play Lucienne, who was Lucian, the librarian of the dreaming and Morpheus's trusted servant, very loyal, knows every story ever told and those yet untold.
I play Joanna Constantine, John Constantine from Hellblazer, and Lady Joanna Constantine, necromancer, who to the aristocrats, she's had an upgrade.
Yes, I play Rose Walker, also known as the Vortex. She looks for her brother. She's trying to reunite the small family that they have, and she meets Morpheus on the way there, and he helps out for a bit of time.
I play the Corinthian, who's essentially created by Morpheus/Dream as your worst nightmare in the world of nightmares. And while Dream is away, the Corinthian escapes into the real world and is basically running amok.
What kind of guidance were you given initially about stepping into these roles that are iconic, and yet you are the first cast to embody these characters in a live-action form? Tom, did Neil set you aside and say, here's how you step into the life and the role of Dream?
I'm not sure we had a moment like that, but the thing that's extraordinary with having such a deep source material is that, there are quite literally thousands of pages to read, dive into, expose yourself to, and if you go there and read it over and over again and subsume yourself in it, then there's no greater preparation in the world.
Original IP, call it, there's nothing to refer back to, like the style, the tone, or the voice of the character. So to have something that has been around for 30 years is really something to lean on to. But we did a lot of different things. Your character was completely changed to female, which is something new and innovative and really cool. A lot of different choices were made, though, in making this.
And also I think everyone was aware of the pressure that we all felt about taking on these beloved characters, and therefore, at least at the beginning, gave us a space to kind of grow into them ourselves and kind of trust that we could bring something that came from inside us.
Jenna, you mentioned Johanna Constantine is in the source material. We have John Constantine, and now we have his relative that's coming along. And I'm just kind of curious if you and any of you can weigh in a little bit more about how your character depictions are different than perhaps they were in the source material, how you might be a little bit different than what fans might have already seen.
To be honest, for me it was, I had a choice whether I go back and look at other iterations, but it felt so clear from Allan's script what in particular this version, this Joanna Constantine, needed. So it is a bit different, and obviously not just because it's in female form. I went back and watched a bit, but it feels so clear on the page, so I left it there. And then it was really fun to explore the relationship with Morpheus and Constantine and Morpheus.
Yeah, I'd say the same as Jenna, really. We've got such a strong script and it's so clear, but yet you're allowed to put your own take on it. So for me, it was about trusting that and not getting too bogged down with feeling like, oh my God, this is such an iconic character. What can you bring to it yourself? And I feel like we were really given the space to do that and discover things for ourselves. But yeah, Allan's done such an amazing job that it's really easy to work from that place.
In the comics, Rose was a bit more, I think, punk and a bit more sarcastic than I was in the show. I was a bit more, book smart and preppy. And personality-wise, I was kind of the same. I think perhaps a bit softer, especially in the beginning. It wasn't too far from the original.
For my character, I was very timid to understand how this would be done. I'm basically wearing sunglasses the whole time, and for a lot of acting is literally in your eyes, and so I was very hesitant, and really our showrunner Allan Heinberg gave us all so much to play with, and I only had 1 or 2 scenes in a comic to rely on, but there was that left in the script that had so much personality for the Corinthian and such a playful manner about him that I had a ball playing him.
I'm obsessed with the original. I didn't want to deviate from it at all. I wanted to try as hard as I can to realize the Morpheus that from the film that I made in my head, like from reading the books, and that was made so easy by the exquisite scripts that were written for us. But it is new and fresh in the sense that he's put in front of these entirely new characters and new iterations of the characters, and so you can't help but have a new experience, I think, both playing it and watching it.
Even though it's on the page, you develop this sense of what Morpheus sounds like in your head as a reader, as a fan. And I
mean, absolutely. And I think we probably all have slightly different interpretations of what that voice is, but there is something about the way those images and even the way that the speech is printed that there's a quality that I feel is in all of our ears.
Well, okay, so your
not
voice,
doing it now.
I mean, your voice is the one that we're going to be seeing. So tell me a little bit about how you found that voice.
I'll tell you a very specific thing. The first, I think we'd shot 1 scene, which it's your first scene of Sandman. Like, you're pretty terrified about how the embodiment is a complete failure of everyone's hopes and dreams. And Neil, our beloved author, takes me aside and goes, "Yeah, don't do Batman." And so that was a good window into how to figure out the voice. It's not Batman. It turns out it's Robin.
This is such a trippy world that can be beautiful, can be nightmare fuel, and even as a reader can really stick with you. So as you're acting in this world, as each of you are moving through this dream-like existence, I'm curious, has it infected your actual dreams? Have you had the Sandman's world start to bleed into your own fantasy world and your own dream world?
Yeah. When we started filming, I was reading the comics and obviously filming, and I had to stop doing the both together at one point because my dreams were just crazy. It was really intense, so I was like, okay, Viv, step away.
There were moments when we were making it that felt like a dream and were extraordinarily confusing. I remember one moment with you, Vanesu, when we were walking through, we were following the child version of Zelda, who's a housemate of Rose's. We were walking through this wooded graveyard, and there was ash, like snowing from the sky, and this extraordinary child was wearing a black veil, talking, and I was following you, and I think looking at you and thinking, who is this extraordinary young woman, and like desperate to figure out what you were thinking as we were watching a strange child through a graveyard as the ash fell down on our heads, and someone shouted cut, and I genuinely was like, Jesus Christ, Sandman's becoming a documentary, right? Because I am living a dream, and I am behaving exactly how I'm supposed to in this moment. So yeah,
you're playing a character that, as you said, in the comics maybe we're not spending necessarily a whole lot of time with, but is a terrifying character and is a creation of nightmare. Is that something that lingered with you, impacted you?
I feel like when you can do so much prep for a character, but you really have to be there day in and day out, and you sort of grow into it. It blends into you, and you figure it out as you're doing it. And I wish I could have all the answers before I got onto set, but that's, to me, the magical part of figuring everything out through the process of filmmaking. And with the research, you can go down some really dark places in researching a serial killer and who hosts serial killer conventions. And if he didn't have that aspect to him, he would have been, in my mind, the most lovable, likable guy in the room. And the juxtaposition of that for me is really cool to play with.
Yeah, if he wasn't a serial killer, he'd be very likable.
Yeah, you would never know.
And Jenna, how about yourself? I mean, playing a sorcerer, playing someone that's so tuned into magic, did it kind of start bleeding into your internal world at all, your own dreams?
No, I did learn how to do some Latin exorcisms though, and found myself doing a voice coach session outside my friend's house, doing like an exorcism. I thought I was really intrigued by when we were shooting. It was like you read the script a certain way, and it's like what you were saying about the discovery, like of finding things when you get to set, and then it takes on a journey of its own, and so much about Joanna Constantine and is all about defense mechanism and, you know, being such a tortured soul, and actually the place where she's most vulnerable is where she's tortured in her dreams, which I thought was such an interesting way into their dynamic, because the place where she was most vulnerable was the place where, you know, Morpheus would access. So in terms of a relationship dynamic, I thought that was a really interesting journey. It kind of opened up and took a different route than I ever thought it would do.
As we go forward, what's sort of if you can, what's the episode that you are most excited for fans to see when this show is finally revealed?
I mean, what I love about this show is that every episode is so spectacularly different, and it kind of, for people who are seeking the most debased version of humanity, it's there. For people who are seeking like joy and fantasy and adventure, it's there. For people who are seeking love and hope or hell and its worst aspects. I mean, it's difficult to single something out because you're going to go on a complete roller coaster ride.